Hello, Year 7. This screencast is to help you prepare for our mid-year reading assessment. It's halfway through Year 7, so it's time to see how much your reading levels have improved. What you will need for this is your English rough book with the title Preparation for Reading Assessment. You'll also need your Kon-Tiki handout, something to write with, of course. You are working individually, obviously, because you're probably at home while you do this. And while you are getting ready to do this, you can just hit pause while you write down the title and then hit play when you're ready. So, what is this assessment all about? You're going to have a 1 hour and 15-minute assessment, so we'll do this in one of our double lessons. You'll have 15 minutes to read and annotate the texts, and then up to 60 minutes to answer the questions. There are several texts in the assessment, and the questions will cover all of the texts. So let's start with some secrets. If a question is worth 1 mark, you only need to write down 1 word or 1 phrase or 1 sentence. You might want to jot that down in your notes. 1 mark equals 1 word. 2 marks means that you would give a point and then a quote from the text or evidence from the quote. 3 marks means that you would need to write 3 sentences. So you would need a point, you would need evidence, and you would need analysis. In other words, your PEA paragraph. Now, there will be a 5-mark question. The 5-mark question is a question that I call the PEA plus question. This means that you only make 1 point, but you need to use 2 bits of evidence and 2 bits of analysis. We'll look at an example of one of these later on. So, the secret to doing well on a reading assessment is making sure that you understand the type of question that you're being asked. Some of the questions are what we would call AF2 questions. These are questions that ask you simply to select information. So they're asking you to find words or phrases in the text. That's all you have to do. The answer is right in front of you. So the question might start something like, give 2 different words that show, or give 2 different quotes that show the character is... something like that. So what we're going to do now is we're going to read the Kon-Tiki expedition. You can read along with me or press pause, read it to yourself, and then fast forward to the next slide. It's up to you. The Kon-Tiki expedition. The expedition is over. The voyage came to a shattering, shuddering, splintering end 2 nights ago when the Kon-Tiki ran aground on the jagged rocks that nestle in the shallow waters surrounding this dark and foreboding island. There had been an ill feeling in the wind all that day, as though there was something amiss. Then not long before dusk, Eric called that he thought there was a sight of land on the western horizon, and within minutes the boat was thrown this way and that until we felt the jarring and ripping of the rocks under her. We'd run aground. We were able to drag the Kon-Tiki up onto the shore and secure her so that she wouldn't float away. She is our lifeline, our only means of escape. We are unsure exactly where we are, though. We are confident that we are on one of the Polynesian islands, which means that we have completed our mission successfully and proved that it was possible for people from South America to sail across the Pacific Ocean hundreds of years before Christopher Columbus sailed for the New World. It will be a tragedy if no one hears of our success. We have so much to tell. It has been very pleasing to find that the materials and tools, which were copies of those used hundreds of years ago, have worked very well, and we haven't relied much on their modern counterparts, which we were obliged to take as a safety measure. We have been able to salvage food and fresh water from our store. Our Swedish friend Bengt has done a great job of looking after our supplies and rations. He tells me that we still have some sweet potatoes and bottle gourds left, together with assorted fruits and roots, and the ancient storage containers that we have used have proved very effective. The field rations provided by the U.S. Army include tinned food and survival equipment, so we shall not starve. 5 Norwegians, 1 Swede, and a parrot called Lorita. We've made quite a team with each of our area of responsibility and expertise. Although I, Thor Heyerdahl, have been the expedition leader, I couldn't have done it without the help of the other men. The value of the parrot is a little more difficult to assess. Some days she has screeched from dawn to dusk and driven us mad. Other days she has amused us with her chatter and the way she cocks her head to one side as she listens to our conversation. I cannot think of what is to become of her if we are not rescued. Nutt and Torsten have been working all day on the radio trying to raise a response to our signal. In the last hour they think they have been successful, and I am easier in my spirits to think that there will be a rescue ship on its way to us within a few days. There are no finer radio experts in the whole world than these two men. By my calculations, it must be around August 9th, meaning that our journey has taken 101 days. We left Callao in Peru on April 28th, and, although the Peruvian Navy towed us until we were well clear of the coastal traffic, we were soon out in the wild open waters, and that was our last sight of land for over 3 months, until the crash the other night. If we had known how rough the seas were going to be and how awful it is for 6 men to be shut up together for months on end while the ocean chums and roars, then maybe we would never have set off. The seasickness was terrible from time to time, and there have been days and nights where I could not leave my bunk. But the adventure has been exhilarating, and to be able to confirm that men have been sailing these oceans for centuries longer than was thought is very satisfying. I begin to believe that history will remember our voyage unless we are never found, and then our discoveries will be worthless. Despite our predicament, our engineer Herman is excited at the data he will be able to collect, and he is keen to venture a little further inland. This area is so little explored that he expects that anything he discovers will be of great value to the Geographical Society. He hopes to make a short expedition tomorrow morning, though I am anxious that he does not stray too far inland. Eric is sitting on the beach looking out to sea. He is lost in thought and no doubt planning one of the children's books he hopes to write. The sky is relentlessly blue and shimmers a little where it meets the ocean on the horizon. Maybe the hazy blobs in the distance are schools of whales or dolphins, though they seem to be speeding towards the shore. All 6 of us have spotted them now and are cupping our hands over our eyes to block out the sunlight as we try to determine what approaches. Eric is on his feet. "Canoes!" he shouts, and we watch as 3 canoes glide through the water towards us. Bare-chested men with elaborate headdresses become visible, and we look at one another, unsure whether to stand our ground or run. Okay, here's an example of a 1-mark question. You'll notice the pin in the corner. That means I'd like you to write this down in your rough book as evidence of you going through this presentation for your extended learning. The example question says, who were 2 of the 6 members of the crew? If you'll notice, it's a 1-mark question. That means that you're going to get half a mark for each member that you name. Remember, for the 1-mark question, you only need to write down the names of the members. You don't need to write it in a sentence. Pause now until you're ready to go on to the next question. So, 2 possible answers, 2 names that were mentioned in the story. Or you could have mentioned the other 4. Right, the next type of question is the AF3 question, which asks you to interpret or infer. So you have to figure out something that is not there right in front of you. So the question might begin like this. What does this quote suggest? Or which 2 statements show? Or explain one interpretation of? These kind of questions ask you to be a detective. You have to read the text and then explain what you think. So, for an example, they'll give you a quote and then they'll ask you a question, such as the question which is written in blue font. The quote begins, "There had been an ill feeling in the wind all that day, as though there was something amiss," so on and so forth. And then the question says, what is meant by an ill feeling in the wind? Now, one way that they might trick you with this is that you might think that you need to write about the entire quote, and that's wrong. You actually only need to write about the quote that they have put in the question. This is actually only a 1-mark question, so they only want 1 sentence, so don't spend too much time on it. So this quote suggests that something is not quite right. The next type of question is the AF4 question, where you have to comment on the structure of the text. So this means that you're looking at how the text looks, at the grammar, the sentence structure, and at its presentation. So it might say, explain one way the author organizes his ideas. So you could say that, for example, they're in chronological order. Or if it's about a leaflet, they might say, explain how the whole leaflet is organized and presented. How does the whole of paragraph 2 build up to the information in paragraph 3? Something along those lines. Now, here's an example question. I'd like you to pause this now and try to answer this as best you can. Please take note, it is a 3-mark question, so that means you need to write 3 sentences: a point sentence, an evidence sentence, and an analysis sentence. The question says, how does the whole of paragraph 1 build up to the boat running aground? Support your ideas with quotes from this paragraph. So, give it your best shot and answer that question now. So, here's an example of what you could write. In paragraph 1, a lot of description is used to set the scene before the boat runs aground. So that's your point sentence. For example, blank and blank. So these would be 2 bits of evidence that you could use. You can see examples from the evidence that you could use in the green boxes. Both of these phrases help the reader picture the scene and make the reader feel the tension. And that's your analysis. The next type of question is when you have to comment on the language. This is the AF5 type of question. So they might say something like, what does the choice of language? In what ways does the language show? Explain what the choice of language. And this kind of question is asking you to look at the language. It's asking you to look at the actual words in the sentences. So here's an example question. Don't write the question, but write your answer. In paragraph 5, Thor describes the difficulties of their voyage. Explain what the choice of language in the following quote suggests. Our discoveries will be worthless. 1 mark, so only 1 sentence. Pause now and answer the question. So one example could be, the choice of language suggests that if they were never rescued, their achievements would not be shared. Okay, let's talk about the big one, the 5-mark question. Now, remember, this is a question where you're going to need to write a point, evidence, analysis, evidence, and analysis. So here's the question. What did the Kon-Tiki expedition set out to prove, and how was it done? You really ought to plan before you answer this question. So you could think about a little chart like this. What they wanted to prove, and then how it was done. And all of your information should come from the text. So what they wanted to prove was that it was possible for people to sail across the ocean before Columbus. And how it was done is they mimicked that journey by using all of the things you see on the chart. Now, one suggestion, answer the 5-mark question first when you're doing the assessment, and that way you won't run out of time. Now, here's an example of the answer. The crew has a very determined and prepared attitude towards proving that it was possible for people from South America to sail across the ocean hundreds of years ago, even before Columbus. That's the point sentence. Then there's the evidence sentence. The narrator Thor says that, quote, I couldn't have done it without the help of the other men. Here's the analysis. This reveals that they are prepared, that each member of the crew has a certain area of expertise. Here's more evidence. Another quote shows that they are prepared is, quote, we haven't relied much on modern counterparts. Here's the analysis. This means that they've used the same equipment that they would have been used hundreds of years ago. So as you can imagine, it takes a little bit of time to answer a 5-mark question, and it is worth 5 marks. So I would really think about answering the longer questions first. I hope this screencast has helped you prepare for your reading assessment. Good luck!